Hello, and welcome to today's conversation. Is there any innovation left in smartphones? Presented by Qualcomm. I'm Bennett Richardson, General Manager of Protocol. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our partners at Qualcomm for making today's event possible. At Protocol, we aim to arm you as decision makers in technology, business, and policy with actionable news and analysis to help you do your job. Smartphones are the most important device in modern life. But over the last few years, it feels like not much has changed. Cameras are better, processors are faster, screens sort of fold, but it can feel like the days of game-changing innovation in smartphones are over as the industry turns toward wearables, AR glasses, and whatever comes next. Are smartphones really over, though? Today's panel will dig into that question, look at some of the new tech and devices hitting the market, and try to figure out what the future holds for the slabs of glass in our pockets. I hope you'll join the conversation by tweeting your questions with the hashtag #ProtocolLive. And if you're not already subscribed, don't forget to sign up for Protocol Source Code, Protocol Enterprise, and our other great newsletters at protocol.com/newsletters. To kick things off, I'm excited to welcome Alex Katuzian, Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Mobile, Compute, and Infrastructure Business Unit at Qualcomm. Welcome, Alex.
Good morning, Bennett. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you for joining us. So Alex, Qualcomm has been a driving force behind mobile tech connectivity, the smartphone revolution, and now the 5G era. What innovation is happening with smartphones today, thanks to 5G?
Plenty of innovation still going on in the smartphone. So today, the smartphone is being used more and more, especially during the pandemic and the work from home stages that we've gone through, as well as multiple different applications such as telehealth, education, and so forth. And so the connectivity and the ability to connect from anywhere with a lot of bandwidth and short latency for data to get back and forth has become very critical. And as you know, smartphones are packing in so much technology in terms of processing capability, in terms of AI capability, in terms of camera capability, security, audio capability. All of those things are coming together in essentially a mobile compute device with 5G connectivity to be able to transmit and receive massive amounts of data with short latency times for multiple different applications. So people are using their phones for education, they're using it for telehealth, they're using it for productivity at work, taking meetings, conference calls. So there's multiple applications that 5G will bring huge amounts of benefit to.
No, that's super interesting. And when we were chatting about this event last week, you're talking about the combination of how 5G and some of these smartphone technologies are powering and enabling new technologies like AI and VR and some advancements there. What are some of the most interesting use cases you see now and in the future with some of those advanced emerging technologies?
Yeah, great question. So if I may start with the smartphone today, just taking a photograph. If you go a few years back, we used to have to be able to set up for low light, for sunlight. We have to make sure we're capturing the moment correctly. We had all sorts of settings that we had to play around with, and people weren't, usually people are not experts in trying to figure out what these settings are. But now with the advent of AI in the smartphone, you can take the perfect photograph, you can capture the moment, you can have the best color clarity, you can have the best lighting capability no matter where you are. So all the settings and all the capabilities and recognition of the background and the foreground and recognizing faces and objects are all being done by AI on photography and videography. And then you have multiple different applications around security, around connectivity. Like, for example, the AI algorithms will recognize if you're at home or if you're at work or if you're outside and figure out the best connection from your phone to the network and be able to utilize the fastest connection for you, all through AI algorithms. And then these things will continue to grow and grow over time. And then if I take the application into VR and XR in effect, which we think is going to be the future of computing and mobile communication, AI combined with XR becomes very, very powerful, because XR as a nascent market right now is going to depend on splitting its compute capability either between a phone or a PC or the cloud. And so it needs very good connectivity to try to make that happen. But then applications coming up in the future for AI plus VR or XR, examples are like shopping. You could actually do virtual shopping. You could look at what an outfit would look like on you, or you could look at furniture inside your house. You can capture a 3D image of the place you're in and put furniture or equipment that you need there and do shopping that way. All of those things are governed by AI algorithms. And if you have to reach the cloud and come back for data, then the 5G connectivity, once they become autonomous, becomes a key factor. But if it's connected to the phone and you have a great 5G connection with your phone, then you already have that split environment.
Yeah, no, that split compute point is really interesting about how that innovation on smartphones is not just benefiting the smartphone itself, but really that connection into peripherals and VR devices and that entire ecosystem.
That is absolutely correct. And we kind of see the smartphone at the center of personal smart devices. People are going to carry more than the smartphone. Or, for example, you're going to have smart PCs because PCs are becoming more and more like phones. They power on immediately. They have connectivity in all sorts of environments. They have great multimedia in terms of camera and audio, because now video conferencing is the mainstay for PCs. Look at what we're doing today. And so all of those things kind of draw from the smartphone being at the center of these devices. So smart watch, a smart PC, smart glasses, smart earbuds, all kind of center around the phone as the hub. And as they become more and more autonomous, then the connectivity and processing and AI capability and the connection to the cloud becomes more and more important, which actually benefits Qualcomm being at the center of all those technologies.
And that's super interesting. And as we transition over to the panel, I want to build on that last answer. Bottom line it for us as we think about this new era of innovation, how all these different devices can work together. What does that mean for consumers and for businesses over the next few years?
Well, I think so many different businesses and sectors of the economy are going to benefit from the digital transformation. And that digital transformation means that jobs will get created around multiple different sectors. And 5G and AI and connections to the cloud are going to make multiple different opportunities come to life. Remote working, education, automotive applications, industrial applications, automated factories, automated driving, so that connections are continuously happening between the car and multiple networks for security, for knowledge of what's going to happen in front of you or a mile ahead of you, connections to other cars. So many different sectors of the economy will benefit from 5G and AI and computing. And so the job creation around that is huge. And we have multiple numbers from now till 2035. I think I'm quoting a IHS or Accenture figure where 13 trillion in economic impact with job creation is going to be here by 2035, mostly revolving around 5G and connectivity. So huge impact on the economy, huge impact on different sectors.
That is a huge impact. Well, thank you, Alex. Great insights to kick off today's conversation. Really appreciate you joining us, and thanks again to Qualcomm for the partnership.
Thank you so much for your time and listening to what I had to say.
Of course. Thank you. Now on to our panel. I'm excited to bring up our moderator, Protocol Editor-at-Large, David Pierce, to get the conversation started. David, over to you.
Thanks, Bennett. Hey, everybody. Like Bennett said, my name is David Pierce. I am Protocol's Editor-at-Large. I'm very excited about this. We've been planning to do this panel for like a long time, and I have a lot of questions, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So rather than have me introduce all of you, let's just go down the line and tell us sort of quickly like who you are, what you do, and I guess what phone you're currently using like today, right this minute. So we'll just go down the line on the screen here. Drew, you go first.
Hi, I'm Drew Blackard. I'm Vice President of Smartphone Product Management for Samsung Electronics America. In that role, I basically bring new products to market in the U.S. market around smartphones. And the phone I'm using today is our Fold 3. We'll talk about smartphone innovation, but it's my Fold 3 right here.
Nice. Christina, you're up next.
Hi, my name is Christina Sear. I am CEO of Detour, and we make non-rectangular phones for non-rectangular people, starting with a phone with a round display called the Cyrcle phone. And I don't know, Alex, if you caught that, but we have the Snapdragon Insiders wallpaper on there that was announced earlier this year. So it has a Snapdragon chip inside of it, and we're very proud to have that. We're really excited because this is our second smartphone, and we're looking forward to other non-rectangular devices in the future.
I like it. And last but certainly not least, Nicole.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Nicole Faber. I'm actually located in Germany and joining here late at night, kind of. I'm working as CTO for Purism, so I'm concerned about all of technology of Purism. And I currently have to use two phones, and probably later on we can catch up on that. The one is the Purism Librem 5, which is a complete open source and Linux-based phone, pretty much open. And the other one is sadly an Android phone, sadly for me. And we can talk about this a little bit later.
I like it. I'm glad. I was hoping I was going to catch somebody using something other than your own product. So I'm glad I got you at least a little bit on that one. That's good. So again, thank you all for being here. I'm very excited to talk about this. And I think like the spoiler alert piece of this, right, is that I think all three of you and also I would agree that there is plenty of innovation left in smartphones. So I think what I want to do is talk about what that looks like and kind of where it goes from here. And I think to me, the place I want to start is really, we're in this place now where smartphones are just like a fundamental piece of modern life. And I think things like Facebook going down yesterday make clearer than ever to everybody sort of how reliant we are on these devices and these services. And I wonder from your perspective as product makers, how that makes you think about this as opposed to what it was, 10 years ago or 15 years ago when everything was new and felt weird and wild and everybody was just experimenting and nobody knew anything, how it changes when this is sort of just a core part of modern life. And Drew, maybe let's start with you. Like, how do you think about sort of what it means to make a smartphone differently than maybe even a few years ago?
Yeah, well, I think, Alex touched on it in the intro that people are using their mobile devices more than they ever have during the pandemic. So in the past year and a half, we've seen really just an explosion of usage, even at home, which is a little counterintuitive because you think around the home, you have all these other connected devices. Are you going to be spending time on your smartphone? And the answer by and large is yes. And if you think about that within context, it's families are at home, people are studying from home, they're working from home. And so there's more people consuming more content and needing more screens. And a lot of times the best device that a person has with the best screen, the best network connectivity might be the phone in their pocket. So they're relying on that more than ever, whether it be to watch video or do video calls or do the range of different things that we're doing today, play games at home. And so we're seeing the overall usage increase, and a lot of that's driven through multimedia. Video consumption is about 2/3 of mobile data traffic these days. So if you think about that, consumers want amazing displays. They want an ability to, have a battery that lasts throughout the day. They want a great camera system. These are all the things that, to your point, have traditionally driven the smartphone industry forward. The way that we see that evolving, though, is that with the new technology available, we can kind of elevate those experiences in ways that you haven't been able to before. So like simple examples with our foldable form factor, consumers were kind of constrained by the size of their purse or pocket, right? Or their hand size. There's only so much screen that they'd be willing to carry to make it portable. And with our flip model, where you can literally fold a 6.7-inch screen in half and put it in your pocket, or our fold, which goes from a smartphone size to a 7.6-inch open screen kind of tablet form factor, you really get the flexibility of having a big screen format in a much more portable form factor, which allows not only the user to do the things that they love the most, like watch more video, the example we were talking about, but it opens up a whole host of new different use cases that they can do. So like just simple examples are hands-free video chat, right? If you're kind of at your desk and not needing to hold up a phone, the actual foldable form factor can just sit and kind of function like a desktop, on your desk, or out and about. It opens up a whole new array of different things for multitasking. So we worked with partners like Google and Microsoft for how to basically have multiple apps running at the same time. So you have 3 applications running at the same time on screen with your Fold 3. So what it really has done is it's kind of like some of the core use cases have evolved the form factor of the smartphone, which then has created opportunity for a whole range of new use cases that we can deliver. That's really exciting.
Okay. And Christina, I'm curious about your perspective too, because you're doing something that is deliberately very different than what a lot of smartphones have looked like. I mean, I think for years, we all just sort of decided that like, this is what phones look like, right? It's just like a slab of glass that goes in my pocket. And you're trying to kind of blow up that whole idea in a way that I think is really interesting. But I'm curious, even as you come into this, is it hard to sort of combat the idea that like, this is what phones are, quote unquote, supposed to look like?
Absolutely. And, when people come across our phone, they're like, ooh, intriguing. And then like, how are my apps going to work on that display? And we did what a lot of OEMs don't do, and we turned on Freeform Mode by default. And what that means is that you can resize your application within that window and you can move it around. It's more like a desktop than a mobile phone. So that's really convenient for being able to access the corner bits of the applications and then enlarge them full screen for videos and pictures. So we've really appreciated having that feature being Android based.
Yeah, that's cool. And Nicole, from your perspective, I would think as this stuff gets bigger and more mature and more sort of mainstream, the things you're thinking about with privacy and security and kind of making sure this stuff, takes care of people becomes more important than ever, right? Like we're way past the point where people can be sort of trusted to make good decisions with their own devices.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's the pretty much different road that we have been taking with Purism. So we try to create devices that protect the user's digital rights and freedom and privacy. And so we cannot use certain things like Android is something, and especially a lot of the proprietary parts that are part of Android and the Android ecosystem, where you need certain drivers and libraries and stuff like that to make your software environment for that. This is something that we basically cannot use and that we try to avoid. We want to base everything on free software. And this also, of course, creates some constraints that we have for creating our ecosystem and also the hardware, because not everything is supported by free software. So that's a pretty much different angle. And so our core audience is not so much concerned about these screen estate and larger screens and the 40 megapixel cameras and stuff like that. It's more about these core functionalities that they miss on a lot of other devices, and where a lot of people these days are pretty much concerned about their private data and how this can be actually effectively protected, their privacy, that cameras don't spy on them or microphones and stuff like that without them knowing.
And just to tag on to what Nicole has said, so we've really admired our technical team has really admired what Purism has done. We've talked about having a Linux-based phone in our repertoire here at the Cyrcle phone. And we've kind of split the difference with this particular release because we have Android. And although the end user can install Google mobile services themselves, we don't ship with it. We actually ship with F-Droid, which is an application store that offers open source and free applications. So for example, if you install NewPipe, it uses the same APIs as you would using like a YouTube interface, but you can watch all of your YouTube videos without ads, without being tracked. It's really convenient. It's a new life.
Totally. Well, and I think that one thing that is kind of consistent in what all of you are saying is that there's this push towards control and choice and kind of giving smartphone users more options in all the things, which I think is really interesting because for years the push was to kind of make these things simple and make them clean and make them sort of work for users, and you would never have to think about it or understand how it works. And I think it's really interesting to me that as this stuff has gotten bigger and more mature, it's also in a certain way kind of opening back up. And Drew, my sense is that's something, I mean, Samsung honestly has been ahead of this for a long time. Like you've always sort of let people do wackier stuff with your devices than your average smartphone company. But is that something you're pushing on now too?
Yeah, I mean, we've always had that core principle that our users have a diversity of needs, and with that, you can't serve them with a single product or a single form factor. So even on the premium tier of the market, that means that we've had multiple brands from our S series to now our Z Fold series to our Note series. But that also means multiple price points, so we have our A series, which brings innovation well down in the portfolio. We're really the only manufacturer in the world that has products starting at $100 all the way up to $1,800 and everything in between. And it's because we really do believe that different users are looking for different things. And so A series is a great example where it's internally, well, not even internally, externally, DJ Ko, our president in Korea, talked about how that was going to become our innovation tier. We were going to launch new things into the mass tier of the market as opposed to the premium tier, which is a different way of thinking about it. Traditionally, you launch the coolest new stuff on premium and it works its way down. And we've treated A series a little bit differently. And so, with that, this year, we actually launched 2 5G A series models that are below $500 and even below $300 for 5G capability with bigger than 6-inch screens, multi-lens cameras. So like incredible devices at really affordable price points. And then all the way down to our entry prepaid models. And so I think that, again, is really just core to understanding that all consumers are not the same. They look for different things. They value and prioritize different things. So on the premium tier, we're really driving new innovation and focusing on use cases that can take advantage of some of the new technology around 5G and display and camera. And we think about price point innovation, right? How do we make these products more accessible to more people so we can really bring that value to users' everyday lives?
I like it. And Christina and Nicole, do you guys feel like that gives you kind of even more of a chance in this space? I think one of the challenges for any smartphone company, frankly, that isn't Samsung or Apple has been that Samsung and Apple exist. And people who buy Samsung phones tend to keep buying Samsung phones, and people who buy Apple phones tend to keep buying Apple phones. And so it's always been interesting to watch, companies try to come in, but it seems to me at least now that because this market is so big and because people want such different things and understand it a little more, that there might be more willingness for people to try new things and experiment and get to know new brands. Is that your sense too?
Well, there's definitely a push on the consumer front for privacy, especially in the last 18 months. And I think Nicole can probably address this even further.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Definitely. We see a lot of the demand in this area. And we see this from customers all over the place, and consumer customers as well as institutional customers, and of course also companies, governmental agencies and stuff like that, who want to have a device they can really trust and that they can control totally and fully in every aspect. So there's definitely a demand for that. The challenge for us is that we exactly sit in between those huge players like Samsung and a lot of others who have capabilities, especially in the hardware area, that we absolutely don't have. Like we cannot create a new camera module or a new CPU for that matter. And this makes it super, super challenging to get these parts. And now with the parts shortage, that's another whole afternoon and night to talk about. That's a real challenge. So yeah, the demand is there. It's just really challenging to create that. Creating the hardware took us a lot of effort and a lot of money, and also on the software side, it took us almost 3 years to get on the software side to the state that we are now, and we're not done yet with all the free software that we're using. But yes, the demand is definitely there, and there's a lot of work to be done.
And further, just to kind of move the point further, so not only privacy, but we're seeing a lot of innovation happening with the operating systems. So for example, not only Purism's Pure OS, but we're seeing KaiOS for scaled down devices that are, a little bit less full featured. And we're seeing a lot of kind of Linux-based systems come out to the forefront these days. And I'm really excited to see that innovation, to see the diversity on the market. But one thing that we haven't touched on yet on the panel is sustainability. And I'm really excited to get to that point.
Let's do that now. Because I think on the list of things that customers care about, and this is actually what I wanted to get to next, is I think one of the questions I have for all of you is, how has sort of the list of customer requests and needs changed even just in the last few years? And one of the things that I've heard over and over, and I think is true, is that sustainability and it caring about the environment is like it factors into people's purchase decisions way more than it did even in the very recent past. And that's forcing companies of all sizes to rethink how they do stuff, because now it is a thing people buy along. It is a reason people will buy along with it has a good camera or the price is right or whatever. So Christina, tell me how you think about that. That's obviously front of mind.
So this is kind of my passion project. So for the Cyrcle phone, we've had biodegradable enclosures for both our first phone and our second phone, and we intend to continue in that vein. That being said, there are some remarkable technologies that are coming to the forefront for recycling batteries, so lithium batteries. And that just of this year is becoming cost effective enough that it's actually cheaper to manufacture a recycled battery than it is to manufacture a battery from pure materials. So as long as you're doing it at scale. So the breakpoint is somewhere between 30,000 to 70,000 units. So you have to be manufacturing, more than that number to be able to even break even. But then once you get past that, as of this year, 2021, it is economically sound. So I'm really excited to see that happening, and hopefully looking forward to the future that we can have phones, because it's our number one device. And it also influences a lot of technology across different platforms, whether it's in TVs or remotes or sensing systems, home security devices. It really influences a lot of the other technology around us. And so to be able to encompass that in a mobile phone itself and to kind of, break through with this device in particular, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying a little bit, Drew, where the kind of the sources of innovation and where things are changing is different than maybe what it used to be. That the $1,800 phones are not necessarily driving what everything else looks like, that the changes are kind of coming from all sides.
Well, yeah, and I think, to me, this is such an interesting topic, because one of the core drivers of sustainability is actually probably the predominant promotional platform of all the U.S. carriers, which is trade-in programs. So if you think about, you go into a carrier store and you're seeing trade-in values of $500, $600, $700, $800, a lot of consumers are like, well, they're going to give me that much for a used phone. Well, what happens on the back end is basically, we recoup those phones, recycle and renew those phones, and have certified renew programs. So basically, consumers are going in and getting value for the phone in their pocket, trading it in and being able to upgrade more easily. But then that phone has a second life, as it gets renewed by companies like Samsung or other companies that have certified renew programs. And then there's values for a different set of consumers who, either are more eco-friendly or they're looking for an alternative option. Maybe they lost a phone or broke a phone and want a kind of a different way to replace it. And so it creates a whole, second life ecosystem around those trade-in programs. It's really important in helping drive forward some of these sustainability platforms. And then Samsung is doing other things as well for people who don't want to trade in their phone. We have a program that's pretty cool called upcycling, which is basically allows you to do a software update to an old phone that might be sitting in a drawer, and then you can use it as an IoT sensor. So it can be like a light sensor or motion sensor that you use around the home. So it allows you to use that phone as opposed to just having it go to waste or be put away in a drawer. So whether it be through trade-ins or different second use models, I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on with sustainability.
And anytime you can reuse instead of recycle, go for it, because that is a better use of our resources. So to be able to have those programs is really wonderful.
Yeah, and what does it take from companies like yours to sustain that? I mean, to some extent, it's things like really long software updates so people can use their devices longer, even for sort of simple things. But that gets really challenging when you're like, how do I support an 8-year-old device and still have it make any kind of business sense? Or even for a relatively new company to make those promises to customers that like this will last a long time one way or another, or we're going to set up these very intense, complicated recycling and reuse systems. Like, it just seems like I think for years that has struck everybody as kind of a very good idea, but very hard to actually pull off in practice. Are we getting better at it now?
For sure. I mean, I think like to Christina's comment, there's definitely efficiencies of scale. And again, I think like the trade-in platforms have driven that scale needed to have, recycling programs that are actually efficient and make business sense for companies. So then it becomes a virtuous cycle when companies can actually make money on it, they invest in it, and then it creates kind of that ecosystem for second use. And you raised a good point on software, because I think that's another key issue right around like a renewed phone. And so Samsung is committed to 4 years of software updates, which is kind of the longest commitment we've been, made to date. And so that allows you to kind of ensure that the life of the phone that you have, you get excellent life out of that. And then when you are, ready to either upcycle it or trade it in, that, there's still probably years left on it based on the usage models of most consumers.
Okay, I like it. Nicole, what were you going to say?
Yeah, for me, there are two parts to it. One, of course, is the hardware side. What we did with Librem 5 is from the very beginning in the hardware design process, we looked that the phone can be disassembled just with a screwdriver, and that you can replace that. An ordinary user, even without a screwdriver, can replace the battery, which is the part that has the most wear in the phone, usually. And so on the hardware side, we try to avoid this kind of planned obsolescence of the former models and many of the others. And then, of course, there's a software side that that you already touched upon. And with free software, I think we have the best chance to maintain running a decent running, stable, and also secure operating system on even older hardware. Because what we usually do at Purism is we try to push all our changes to the free software communities backwards upstream, and this integrates them into the larger projects. And so we automatically also get all the changes and security fixes from those upstream projects back into the software platform kind of automatically, which lessens the burden of maintenance for software. So we always have the up-to-date software on all of our devices, and that's also, of course, true for the phone, because the phone essentially is nothing else than just a tiny computer, and it's the same thing as a desktop or something like that. And looking at Linux systems, you can still run pretty old PCs with kind of decent and recent Linux-based software. So, and that's exactly the same thing that we try with the Librem 5.
I like that. Christina, you just...
And also with the Cyrcle phone, we are huge right to repair advocates. Our enclosure is open source, so you can print a new enclosure. If you bang up your current enclosure, you can print it yourself, or you can have a facility print it for you, 3D print it for you. We have 4 screws on the back. You can replace the display, you can replace the battery, for a typical user. And because of that, for example, I replaced on my laptop recently, I replaced my keyboard and I replaced my battery, and it was 58 screws for the keyboard. What was it, 29 for the battery? And I was thinking, gosh, I'm really glad that we only have a few screws on our mobile phone to be able to replace those components. So I think for those of us in the smaller space, we're thinking more about having the consumer being able to repair their own devices to improve that longevity.
Yeah. Drew, how are you thinking about repairability?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have, it's very important for users. I think we start with durability and then get to repairability. So, durability, every generation, we've really focused on making the device more durable than ever. So as an example, even with the foldables this year, we had the first ever water resistant foldables. So they're IPX8 rated, so they can be underwater for 1.5 meters for up to 30 minutes. We have Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, so the strongest glass on a smartphone. The interior display of the foldables is using a new material that's stronger than previous generations, and we're using a brand new aluminum designed by Samsung. We call it Armor Aluminum to make it even more durable on the exterior. So all of these things are really getting implemented to our flagship products to make them more durable than ever. Then when it comes to repairability, accidents happen, right? And so we have some of our own Samsung first-party care centers, and we've partnered with Ubreak iFix across the country, and they're certified Samsung repair shops that have all Samsung parts, Samsung equipment that can replace and repair different devices. So it's definitely important. We want to make sure it's a great, seamless consumer experience, and they have access, regardless where they live, to quick, easy, repair. You're not going to be able to do it with 4 screws at home, but we have a lot of access and options for consumers out there.
Well, and that does raise an interesting sort of philosophical question that I'm wondering about, and I think this goes back to what, Nicole, you were saying a minute ago, where on the one hand, you have this system where it's like, okay, we want to kind of control the whole thing ourselves, right? And we want to, when you're a big company like Samsung, you can get away with this a lot better than most. But you make a lot of your hardware, you sort of run the ecosystem, you're thinking about the materials, and there are other large phone companies who agree with that too, that sort of the more you can control, the better a user experience you can make. And then on the flip side, there's kind of what you're saying, Nicole, where it's like it's a big world out there. We want to be good partners to the ecosystem and work with third parties. And obviously there's a huge spectrum between those two things, but it strikes me that the right answer for everybody is to kind of find ways to land in the middle. Is that fair? Am I thinking about that the wrong way?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the typical consumer would prefer to bring their device into a repair shop than to do it themselves. And I think that we should support that. I mean, it supports our local communities by supporting those repair shops, and to be able to have them certified by OEMs, I think is a plus.
Fair enough. What do you think, Nicole? I'm guessing you're all the way at the one end of the spectrum, so I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really sure what I should answer here, because repairability, of course, is totally essential in supporting local shops or whoever or end customers to do that. Is absolutely essential on the hardware side, and I think that the same should be true for the software side. And this is a big challenge right now. And I also think that larger companies that actually make those very big innovations in hardware on the CPU side or other peripherals, they should think about contributing more to the free software community, because in the end, it's also beneficial for them again, because these things also come back to their advantage if the proper integration is there, if it's supported by a larger community, if more people do audit the code and stuff like that. So this is very important. So there's a lot that can still be done on this ecosystem side for hardware, which will also drive innovation, because then more people can use actually these hardwares. And this will also, in the end, be beneficial for the consumers in the end, to make better and more innovative, more secure, more safe devices that are open, controllable, and sustainable.
I like it.
Definitely. I would like to echo what Nicole has said. So for us on the technical side, the more open source that device is, the more devices we can put it in. So because we can build the technology around that, and then that just means that OEM gets to sell that many more devices to us. So that for that particular component. So I just think it's a win-win for the OEM who's manufacturing those components, and for us to be able to use it in the diverse number of products that are available these days. I think it's a plus.
I like it. All right, before we switch gears a bit, Drew, any parting thoughts? I saw you nodding.
Well, it's an interesting conversation, right? Like Samsung has a very different global business model than the two examples given there. But what I would say is, the way that we're trying to innovate along the lines of software and consumer experience has to do with cross-platform compatibility. That you don't want to be tied into a single ecosystem. We see value in a lot of different ecosystems. Again, that's another unique thing about Samsung, is we support a variety of different ecosystems. Our watches have some, Tizen-based operating systems. We just launched a new watch with an Android-based operating system. We have Android phones. We have Windows PCs. And we've worked to make sure that they all communicate together. So you can have a seamless experience from Android to Windows to a proprietary Samsung operating system. And so it's I think, a unique philosophy where we very much support open collaboration and open platforms, and frankly are kind of working across operating system lines to try to make sure that the devices that our consumers have access to, regardless of the operating system that they're working on, can have seamless experiences from, a phone to a watch to a tablet to a PC and even to a TV, which is another operating system. So
I like it. And I'm glad I asked, because that is like just a truly A+ segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So well done. Which is, I think, one of the sort of long-term theories I've heard about smartphones, which I'm very interested in and curious what you guys think about. And Alex mentioned this a bit in the intro, is that smartphones over time become less kind of the screen that we look at all day and more kind of the engine that powers our like personal technological sphere. That it's like it's an identity provider for your smartwatch, and it's how your car knows you're nearby, or that it essentially kind of powers all these devices around you rather than being like the center of gravity itself. And I guess to whoever wants to go, do you buy that theory? Is that where we're headed? What do you guys think?
Absolutely. This is also one of the things that we started to design into the phone that we've done, the Librem 5, that you can connect it, for example, to an external screen and keyboard and mouse and something like that, and use it as a laptop, for example, or with your desktop screen and stuff like that. So this is definitely at the core, and also with the operating system that we use, which is essentially the same that we also use on the laptops or the other PCs, the PureOS, which is a standard Linux system, basically. This is exactly the thing. So the phone is not really a phone. It's just a small-scale computing device. It has lots of storage and computational power. It provides also a smart card reader for providing your identity, cryptographic keys, and things like this. And you can have it with you all the time. And this is the essential thing. So I think once we can separate the computing device from the display device, then a whole new era of devices will become possible, because then you can have your computing device somewhere stuffed in your pocket, close to you, but detached from any input and output system. And this can be then totally arbitrary. It could be something like a laptop or your desktop screen, or like a smartphone, but smaller than, of course, because your computing device is somewhere else. So yes, definitely. And it also is good for security, for example, because then you don't have to transfer your data from one place to another all the time. You can have it with you all the time. Also, a lot of applications that nowadays are in the cloud, and the cloud is essentially nothing else than other one's computers, can be in your pocket again, and you don't have to rely on some other provider to provide some kind of service to you, because then you have it with you all the time. So yes, I definitely am a strong believer in that. We're not there yet, but I think it will be coming.
As Drew knows from my endless questions over the years about DeX, I love the idea that you're going to be able to plug in your phone to a keyboard and monitor and have that be your primary computer. That has felt like the future to me for so many years, and it's like this close to getting here, and I just really wish it would.
Get a Librem 5, you will be able to do it.
There we go. I like it. Christina, what do you think about that?
Definitely, and I feel like this is a good segue into 5G, because I am so ready. You notice on this call, I'm actually on a wired connection, and the reception is so poor, even on the wired connection. And I just cannot wait for that 5G hub to connect all the devices in the house. T-Mobile turned on our 5G in our community just last Tuesday. So I can't wait.
Is it amazing? Has it completely changed your life forever?
Absolutely. So definitely for connected devices, it's really important. That downlink speed is really important. So for example, imagine that. So I took care of my grandpa for years, and he would only call me if he fell, so I could put a sensing device on him, to tell me that he fell. But like with 5G, the downlink support is just so much faster by several degrees. And so because of that, not only would I know, if he fell or not, but also I would know if he had a propensity for falling, because we're getting all of that biometric data, which was always clogged by the transmission speed. And we're able to transport a lot of that more efficiently now on 5G.
I like that. And Drew, what about you? I'm curious, especially as you think about kind of how that interface between phone and everything else is supposed to work, because obviously Samsung's in a position where, like, you know, you make refrigerators and you make all these wearables, and you have sort of unique insight into this whole picture. And like, is the phone the center of it at the end of all this, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think today the phone is still very much the center of it. Like we started the conversation, you know, consumers are relying on their mobile device more than they ever have. That said, there is for sure a growing expectation that that device should work seamlessly with other devices and other services, right? So it's not just about other devices you connect to, but other services you connect to. And I think, you know, I know you were a big Dex fan, and like Dex is a great example of that. So is linked to Windows. You know, that was the solution I was referring to on kind of Android to PC, where I could be out and about, be, you know, taking photos or video on my phone. And if I want to edit it on a computer instead of my phone, it's automatically there when I get back home. I can pull it up on my PC, you know, different operating system, edit it, and then, you know, send it off or post it to a social network. And then within the home, you can fluidly move between rooms. And, you know, if I'm in a room where my TV is and I was playing Spotify, you know, in the other room, it'll ask me if I want to move the Spotify to the room I'm in now, because it has that awareness of kind of where I am in the room. And both, you know, devices are supporting through services. So it's, again, not only hardware, but we're working with, you know, global partners like Microsoft and Netflix and Spotify to have these seamless experiences that kind of go with you. And I think, you know, who knows where the form factors end up, right? You know, foldables is really exciting today. The thing I always think about, I've got 3-year-old twins at home, and I can guarantee you when they're my age, they're not going to be carrying this phone, right? The form factor will look very different. It'll probably be a variety of different form factors that they're, you know, using and accessing throughout the day. But the expectation will be that the services and the experience that they have across those is very fluid, and it's an ecosystem that they're, you know, kind of seamlessly moving through. And so that's kind of the way I think about it, is that very much today, the smartphone is the center of that. Going forward, the premium is going to be on the experience.
I buy that. And to that point, as this smartphone is the center of this comes back to one of my sort of pet theories about repairability, which is just that if we just fixed batteries so that they didn't start to decrease over time and they were maybe easier to replace, and that like if power generation and charging and battery life wasn't a problem, that like instantly the life of a person in the world right now just gets immeasurably better. So I might be overstating that slightly, but I do think battery life and power seems to be one of the things that for years has been the kind of thing that every user is just like, dear God, just give me longer battery life. And then most phones just keep being the same battery life. And we've kind of landed at the point where it's like you get a day and then you charge it at night. And I wonder, like, if we started making phones that lasted a week, would everything suddenly be different? So like, how, as you, all of you are phone makers, like how important is sort of increasing battery life as a construct as you think about building this stuff?
So if the user is willing to sacrifice performance, I mean, you can make that battery last a week. But for the user who is, you know, playing games, downloading videos, you know, really using that data a lot, you're really going to see poor performance for that battery. So it really depends on the user. And then also with systems that are running in the background. So when you have a cleaner build, like you can find on, you know, some of the more diverse units out there, you do end up with longer battery life, even though the battery is smaller, excuse me. So, you know, it's something to think about as a population and as consumers. But the number one thing that improves battery life is actually connectivity. So having a better antenna, having 5G, you know, making sure that you're able to get more data in a shorter burst really extends that battery life over the long haul. So we're seeing mixed results right now as we're switching from 4G to 5G. So as those phones are trying to transition between the two systems, but once we're solid on 5G, then we're going to see better battery life.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in my view, Christina is very correct that like it's a matter of trade-offs, right? And if a consumer wanted a twice as thick phone, you could put a better battery in that. But consumers have clearly spoken that they want, you know, a slimmer, sleeker design that they can easily carry around and put in their pocket. And with that, I would say there's kind of this continual challenge of users' behavior continually is changing. And so, as we were, talking about a few times throughout the conversation, people are using their phones more than they ever have. And on top of that, they're doing data intensive things. They're doing video streaming. They're watching full HD. They're capturing 4K or 8K video. So the way that they're using the device continues to keep pace with the available battery and the battery technology. And so what we focused on at Samsung is at a minimum having all-day battery life. So you make it through a full day of intense use without having to recharge. And then on top of that, fast charging speeds. So you can charge within, very short amount of time. You can 30 minutes and get enough charge for the rest of the day, or even 10 minutes and get enough charge for the rest of the day. So focusing on all-day battery life and faster charging speeds is our view of a good balanced trade-off where users get the design and the performance they want and the high-end display and all the different great network connectivity speeds of 5G, and also not really having to worry on a daily basis about their phone battery life, because most people are in the habit of just when they're asleep at night they're charging their phone.
Truly. And I heard there was one gentleman from IEEE had this great quote, and this was years ago, so this was before 5G, but he said, the solution to battery life is not biochemical. It's not within the battery itself. It's actually battery saving software that's going to save us in the long run. And so a lot of OEMs have put in that battery efficient software to be able to maximize that battery life. And I think that more advances in that area, I think, will really help us in the short term as well.
So does that mean I need to not have my hopes up so high for some revolutionary battery technology coming in like the next 2 years? Because you see there's always like somebody wins like a high school science project with a battery that lasts 40 times longer than anything else, or like they're like, oh, we can charge your phone through the air, never plug it in again. Should I get over waiting for any of those to be real in my life anytime soon?
Exactly. In 2014, I looked and I looked and I looked and I couldn't find anything. But one of the most exciting things that we have these days, I'll go back to the recycled battery, is that there's actually more lithium in a ton of smartphones than there is in a ton of raw lithium ore. And so to be able to stop harvesting lithium from our Earth's crust and actually use the e-waste that is already on the surface, and to be able to use it responsibly and in an efficient manner, I think is really powerful. And so for us to be able to recycle that lithium and put it through one more process so it has the potential to be more pure, to be able to have those very, very pure recycled batteries, I think is the way of the future. And we should all go wholeheartedly in that direction.
Fair enough. Nicole, you've been quiet for a minute. Does that mean you're about to give me my incredible battery breakthrough that I've been waiting for?
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I can't. No, I can just second everything that has been said. Definitely true. Also on the software side, yes, we are also working a lot on the software side. And with my former company, I've been working with Nokia, for example, and I had a little bit glimpse of an insight into what they did for the former Nokia phones. They're on power management, and they were really excellent with that. And most of it is indeed done in software. By cleverly constructing and architecting the software, you can do really a lot. But of course, this doesn't prevent users from doing crazy stuff with their phones while they're actually using them. And then, well, it's up to the capacity and the battery and the chemistry and physics. Well, there isn't that much revolutionary coming up around the corner. So I'm afraid we have to stick with this volume that we have and the technology that we have, and just make the best use of it. And probably also some new inventions in charging technology, either rapid charging or the ways how to actually get the power into the phone, different wireless charging technologies to make it more convenient to charge several times during the day without actually getting disturbed by the charging process, being tethered to a wire or something like that. This is probably the most promising paths that I could currently foresee.
All right, fair enough. And then on the other side of the spectrum, in terms of things that I keep waiting for to stop getting any better, but keep somehow seeming to get better, is cameras. Which seem like, at least as far as I can tell, like that has been kind of the main place of interesting innovation in smartphones, and maybe the thing that users care most about for like most of the last decade. Is that going to be the story of the next decade too? Like, Drew, is camera still the thing for?
I was going to say, Drew, you got to talk to this, because every time like I'm in a cafe and I see a camera with, I see a smartphone with all these cameras, I'm like, oh, that's a Samsung.
I keep waiting for the Samsung phone with like 35 cameras.
I mean, I think it's going to continue, and I think there's two great reasons why. You know, I think one is around the history of the smartphone has been kind of integrating and obsolescing other products, right? Like kind of, we all had an MP3 player once upon a time, and no one really carries those anymore, you know? Cameras, professional cameras still have a place in, you know, in everyday life. And so, you know, your phone is probably your primary capture device as you go around your daily life. But if your wedding photographer showed up with a smartphone, you might be a little perturbed, right? You probably wouldn't love that. So that to me suggests there's room to grow, you know, in terms of how do you really, you know, move that forward. Some of that are challenges with physics and light that can be, you know, really innovated through hardware and sensor technology, but other pieces through the computing power and the network power of the device that are unique to smartphone can really drive forward the quality of capture for both photography and videography as it relates to artificial intelligence and image processing and things like that. So there's still work to be done. You know, I think features like ours of space zoom, where you can go up to 100x zoom on a smartphone, are like, you know, the first in a number of features that really are starting to chip away at that differentiation between maybe a DSLR in the pocket, you know, the phone in your pocket. But I think that'll continue to be an innovation, right? Which is like, how do you continue to get the best possible quality for video and photos out of the smartphone in your pocket? And then the other area is that consumers are using cameras in totally new ways, right? Pretty much every social networking platform is now a video first platform on the mobile device. And so it's not only about just capturing a static image or a video, it's about immediately wanting to post it, having, you know, things overlaid on top of it. They're becoming a way to enter into games through augmented reality. Video chat is, you know, a huge use case over the past year and a half, where you need excellent cameras, you know, to be able to do that with fast connectivity and network speed. So there's this whole host of new use cases that you can't do on, you know, a DSLR camera that you can do on a smartphone. And so just the innovation going behind that is really cool and unique. And we're even finding, like on our foldables, where just the flipped form factor is allowing, you know, users to capture photos in different ways, where they can capture selfies with a rear camera instead of the selfie camera, so they have a higher resolution. Like simple things like that are changing the way people, you know, are using the device. So I still think there's a lot of room to go on camera. I mean, it's been an exciting area. You know, as long as I've been working on smartphones, it's been one of the top 3 reasons, you know, people want to upgrade to that next one, and it continues to be there.
Okay. And my real question for you is, how many cameras on the back of the smartphone is too many cameras on the back of the smartphone?
Samsung, let us know. Yeah.
Is it 6? Is it 40? Like there's a number here somewhere.
Yeah, we'll tell you when we find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I like that. That's a good answer. And Nicole, you were mentioning, obviously, like you're in less of a position to kind of be pushing the hardware envelope on some of this stuff. Like is camera a place you guys are thinking about where you can innovate and do stuff, or is it just you get to be the beneficiary of kind of the whole ecosystem getting better over time?
Yeah, currently this is not really an area where we could be really innovative for the camera itself. Well, what we could potentially do, and I think that this will also be a field of research and work in the future, is to implement other similar sensors than a camera. We nowadays also see, for example, 3D depth cameras in phones being implemented for interesting use cases, helping AR or VR or whatever, or all these Rs. But there could also be other wavelength cameras that you could implement there, like IR or other wavelengths, which could create very, very interesting other use cases and also scenarios in what you could do with your phone, actually. And since you have your phone always with you, these sensors having always with you, that could be very, very interesting. And this is something that we could potentially also look into, all those different kinds of wavelength sensors and cameras.
To double down on what Nicole was saying, I definitely think that we're just on the cusp of all of these sensors coming out and really supplementing all of the technology that we have these days on the Cyrcle phone. Just during COVID, I added a temperature sensor next to our selfie camera, so you can take your own temperature before anybody else takes your temperature. And that was really important to me, and we're excited to play with that technology on our phone. But just, you know, looking out and seeing all the sensors that are available that you can put on devices is really exciting.
Yeah, and it's an interesting, it seems like in that sense, the world is sort of coming back to the smartphone, right? Like we set up all these incredible supply chains that made it easy to miniaturize all this stuff and put it out in the world. And now it's all kind of being convened back into these devices, which I think is really, really exciting.
And especially with telehealth being at home, I mean, just having a lot more sensing devices here in the home itself, I think is really, has a lot of potential.
I like that. Okay, so we are out of time, but I have one last question before I let all of you go. And my connection has been terrible this whole time, so I'm very sorry, and thank you all for putting up with me. But we're just gonna real quick go down the line, and I want to know from each of you, give me an app or something you do on your phone that most people don't do that you think they should know about. Because part of the story I'm hearing is that like the next phase of innovation on phones is a lot about software.
I feel like
give me a
Nicole should go
software thing
first.
people don't know. Let's do it. We'll go in reverse order. Nicole, you're up.
Oops, gone.
Okay, I'll go. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Drew, do you want to go first?
You go, please.
Okay, so I really like NewPipe, watching the YouTube videos and not having the ads and not having my streams tracked. I just love it. And it's a more beautiful interface than the default YouTube interface. So it's great.
I'll go
Yeah,
next.
actually,
Yes.
okay.
I like to use 3 apps at the same time. So with our mobile device, that's a new innovation where I can be watching a YouTube video, have my work email up, and text message with my family all at the same time on a single screen without having to hop around and multitask.
That is, we can use 2 apps on our phone, but not 3. 3. It's awesome.
Yeah, actually, for me, it's a little bit difficult because I'm not so much a smartphone user. The most amazing stuff that I do on the smartphone is actually development. So
Yes.
I can plug it into this laptop kind of device and use it for with a shell, with a command line interface, run a compiler, and do application development directly on my phone on my device, which is totally awesome. And besides that, of course, the usual stuff like an email client and web browsing and things, but this is not so exciting. Being able to do all the other stuff that I usually would need a computer for, or a regular computer for, on my phone, this is really exciting and really cool.
And that's what Purism is known for. I mean, that's their jam.
I love
really
that.
fabulous.
Thank you.
All right. Well, mine was going to be before all of my technology briefly failed me. Using my phone as a webcam, which is a thing that I've been doing over the course of the pandemic because it's awesome. And I'm using my phone as a webcam right now. And again, it's really not held up its end of the bargain this time, but usually it's great. Awesome. Again, thank you guys all so much for doing this. This was really fun. I really appreciate you taking all this time. And I suspect, given how much there is left to do, we're going to have to probably come back together and do this again sometime soon. But thank you all. And thanks to everyone for watching. And we will see you on the next one.
Thanks,
Awesome.
David.
Thank you for having me.